Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Power Rangers. And as you guys can tell from the thumbnail and the title, I am once again joined in this video by my boy Rashad G Reviews for another one of our installments of our back and forth tit for tat series. This time I had him check out Power Rangers, so we're going to hear from him in just one moment. And I actually haven't gotten around to doing any Power Rangers related content on this channel yet, and that's something that I'm definitely looking to do, definitely going back and doing some reviews of the older series as well as some of the earlier films in the franchise. And since I haven't done any of those, I haven't had the chance to talk about the fact that when I was a kid I was a huge Power Rangers fan. Now, I'm sure a lot of guys that are my age now, when that show came out back in the day, yeah, you know, like that age group that I was in definitely loved the Power Rangers. It was definitely a huge part of a lot of young boys and just young kids in general's youth, and part of just watching TV like on Saturday mornings and all that jazz. So I had a lot of love and attachment for those early Power Rangers series, especially like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Ninja Storm and Power Rangers Turbo, stuff like that. I loved a lot of the movies back in the day. They're super cheesy and the whole series as a whole is cheesy, but I always had a lot of fun with it. And so I was definitely excited when this movie was announced, and when I saw the trailer I was even more excited. This essentially was supposed to be a more modern day gritty version of Power Rangers, still retaining that cheesy element, and I think that this movie does that perfectly. For me, this is definitely one of the best Power Rangers things of all time, and it is really a big bummer that the 5 movies that they had planned for this is not going to be moving forward. It looks like this movie will be a one-off. They were going to do a sequel, and now they're talking about a reboot at some point, which I think is a huge bummer. And a big piece of that is the fact that this movie did not do great in theaters, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But yeah, I love this movie. I'll go ahead and start this off mainly by saying that this was a movie that I had a lot of fun with. I went and checked it out in theaters maybe the first week. I couldn't watch it on opening night because I was actually working at a movie theater at the time, but I remember the crowd reaction, and that's really what got me excited. I was working at the movie theater, I was working at the box office actually, and it was great because we were giving out free posters to everybody who was coming to watch it on opening night, and being able to hand it off to all these fans dressed in Power Rangers outfits, guys my age or older that loved Power Rangers growing up, and now there's this more adult version of Power Rangers coming out. The movie is PG-13, it's not like some dark, gritty, gruesome version of the Power Rangers, but it's a more grown-up version. I really enjoy what they did with this movie. I would say that this movie for me is a perfect blend of the Power Rangers meets Breakfast Club meets a modern day superhero origin story. I think that this movie does a great job of setting up who these characters are and really making the title Power Ranger mean something. Now, what I mean by that is something that I really love about this film, and some people actually have a huge criticism of, is the fact that the Power Rangers part of this movie, the part of them being in the suit that you see in the trailer and kicking some ass, is not until the very end of the film. It's not until the third act of the film. I'm sorry if that's a big spoiler for you, but I think it's something that people should know going in, that this movie is a different take on the Power Rangers. I think if you were somebody who maybe grew up in the Power Rangers, were a little bit behind your age group, or maybe you just always found it to be a little bit cheesy, maybe your kids watch Power Rangers and you always felt like it's not something that you can really connect to, I think that this is a great stepping in point for people who may just see Power Rangers as this super cheesy thing and still be able to dip their toes in the cheese that is Power Rangers, while also being able to understand what it is that makes these stories and these characters really fun and endearing. I think this film is a great entryway for a lot of people who may think that the Power Rangers are just something stupid. I actually showed this to my mom, and my mom is definitely, you know, she watched me watch Power Rangers as a kid. She thought it was, you know, cheesy. She had fun with me watching it, but she definitely wasn't some big Power Rangers fan or some parent that was like really ingrained in watching these with me. My mom actually liked to watch things like the Disney movies with me. She was a huge fan of the animated Disney classics, and that was something that she was able to watch with me and also be a fan of, but Power Rangers not so much. But when I showed her this movie, she was actually really into it. She was deeply invested in what was happening and these characters, and when the movie ended, I remember my mom thinking that was pretty freaking cool. There was moments that called back to the older series and older movies, and she was able to kind of lean into that nostalgia from having remembered watching with me. And I think that that's something this movie does so well, is it leans into the nostalgia of the old stuff while also being its own thing. It has its own identity. It sets up these versions of the Power Rangers in such a great way. And this movie is essentially a reboot of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, same character names, same all that. You have actors in this film like Dacre Montgomery, Naomi Scott, both of which would go on to to be in bigger things. You have Dacre, who would go on to be in Stranger Things, and you have Naomi Scott, who just played Jasmine in the live-action Aladdin film. And there's a bunch of other people in this film, including Bryan Cranston and Elizabeth Banks. There's so many great names in here. Bill Hader's also in here. And yeah, this is a film I have a lot of fun with. On a visual level, it has some cheesy CGI elements to it, but that's part of what I was saying before, is that it leans into the cheesy elements of what makes Power Rangers, while also kind of grounding it in this great story about these random set of people who are, you know, kind of pulled together to become something better. I think this movie just does such a great job of taking this really cheesy element of what the Power Rangers is, while also making it a story about these people who are kind of pulled together, that don't know each other, and are all intrigued by the opportunity that being a Power Ranger will be for them, but they're also kind of, you know, hesitant. Some of them are going in for different reasons, and I just love the story around this. Like I mentioned, they don't become Power Rangers until the very end of the film, so something I really loved about it is that the biggest reason for that is that they needed to work together as a team. They needed to know who they were. They needed to work together, get to know each other, and kind of create like a bond, and that's something that I really enjoyed about the film. There's something Rashad's going to talk about in just a little bit, a really important scene where they all get to know each other, and that was one of my favorite scenes. It has to do with a bonfire, and yeah, I just love the characters in this film. I love the fact that they really spent time building up who they were and who they need to be, and realizing who they need to be in order for them to get the suits. And something that's really cool too is that in this one, it's not a suit that they put on or that they press a button that kind of like morphs it on. It kind of comes from within. They are given the Power Ranger essence essentially, and they have to kind of tap into it in order for the armor to kind of come out almost like it's like an exoskeleton. And I really enjoy that. The suits in this movie kind of look like a blend between what Power Rangers would be and kind of like an Iron Man suit. And I think that's really cool. They're not flying around or anything, but you know, the similar look. That's something I definitely enjoy about this film, is the way that they modernize the way that the characters and the suits and the Zords look in this movie. Now, before I continue my thoughts on this movie, let's go ahead and hear what my buddy Rashad Reviews have to say about this.
Today, I'll be going through the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. Hey Perez, what's the deal? Pickles, is everything kosher? Our tit for tat saga continues. This time you got me watching the Power Rangers minus the Mighty Morphin. I've owned this movie for a while. I just never watched it. I had no interest in it. I'm not the biggest Power Rangers fan. Even back in the day when it was a kids TV show, it came on right after X-Men, and after X-Men went off, I checked out. My little brother, he was more into the Power Rangers, so wasn't the biggest fan, but I did like the Super Nintendo game. This movie, though, I gotta say, I dug it. I dug it. It was way better than I expected. This had no business being as enjoyable as it was. For a movie called The Power Rangers, I was expecting something really cheesy, really just dumb, okay? I expected a guilty pleasure out of this, kind of like with the original 1995 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie that me and my son watched together. But I will say this. The creators of this franchise should know who their audience is, and I think that's why this movie didn't do well at the box office. Me and my son watched the 1995 Power Rangers movie. Awful, you know, the one with Ivan Ooze. But my son loved it. He was all in. Because every moment there was something going on. If it wasn't karate, it was robots. It was just a whole bunch of craziness. And he loved it. Okay, that's what the Power Rangers are all about. They're really for kids. This film was really serious. It was kind of dark in tone, even though it was goofy at times and it was a little cheesy at times, but it was really serious. This is as grounded a Power Rangers movie as you can make, all right? For a franchise like this, they made it really dark, but at the same time, for my adult eyes, I enjoyed it. I like movies that have to do with character development, and there was a lot of character development in this movie with these kids, and I did like these kids, and I like the fact that they all had problems. They had that Breakfast Club thing going on, and probably my favorite scene in the movie was not so much the action and the fighting, but I liked the scene where they was at the campfire and they was expressing their problems to each other, like in the Breakfast Club, and they had a heart-to-heart moment because they had a problem morphing, and because they weren't morphing because they weren't together. So I dig the camaraderie in this movie, the relationship with these kids, but that's for me. A little kid, I really can't see enjoying this film. I don't see that. You know, kids have the attention span of Cocker Spaniels, let's be real. Ages 3 to 10, if it doesn't catch their attention, they're going to check out. So I can see kids checking out this movie really fast. And you don't get into the Power Rangers stuff until about the third act of the movie. So the whole movie is them discovering their powers, coming to grips with their powers and learning their powers. And I dug that. You know, don't give me that he didn't dig your face. I dug that. But this is a Power Rangers movie, okay? We're supposed to see Power Rangers shit. You can't call a movie Power Rangers and give us Power Rangers stuff at the end of the movie. And even at the end of the movie, because we had to wait so long, it seemed like it wasn't enough. You know what I mean? It seemed like, damn, I waited. Okay, here it is. And they even threw the theme song in there, you know, go Power Rangers. I'm like, yes, we have the Power Rangers now. You know that shit they be doing. It didn't really last long. Another disappointment in this movie for me was Goldar. And even though I wasn't the biggest Power Rangers fan, I do know the characters. The Goldar character, oh, he looked terrible, atrocious. He looked like melted Velveeta. All right, it's like they took melted Velveeta and made an imitation Goldar. It didn't work. Elizabeth Banks' Rita Repulsa. She was creepy at first. That was a creepy bitch at first. That motherfucker scared me. And she was okay. She served a purpose. You know, I could tell she was having fun in that role playing the villain, but nothing real memorable. You know, there were times where I looked at her. I kind of reminded me of Hela from Thor Ragnarok, but she's definitely no Hela. And she was alright. Yeah, so the villains in this movie was weak. Shout out to Bryan Cranston, who played Zordon. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was cool. And I thought I was going to be disappointed because I didn't think we were going to see the Megazord. And we saw Megazord at the end looking like Optimus Prime on steroids. But like I said, we don't see this until the end. We should have had action throughout while also doing the character development. So wrapping this up, y'all, I give the Power Rangers a B-. I thought it was a very good movie to my taste. But for kids, I can see kids really checking out, not really liking this. And there were times where the movie did drag on a little too much. I think it could have been a little bit shorter, actually a lot shorter. This movie should have been like an hour 35, hour 40 minutes, tops. You know what I mean? And another example of how to get that done is the first Ninja Turtles movie from 1990. Dark in tone, but at the same time gave enough turtle action where even though it was kind of dark and it was serious, but kids would not get bored by it. And I feel like kids would get bored by the Power Rangers. But me personally, I dug it and I will watch it again. So yeah, B- is what I got for the Power Rangers. Perez, the floor is yours. What do you got, homie?
As usual, a big thanks to Rashad for being here in this video. I loved hearing what you had to say, man. Honestly, when I send you movies, I don't know if you're going to be into them or not, but I was really, really excited to hear what you had to say about this one, and I'm glad that on overall you enjoyed it, man. You know, it's nice to hear that you were a parent that watches some of those cheesy films with your son, and you kind of were surprised at how good this movie was. You know, it's not perfect, but there's a lot about this movie that I think is really solid and could be a great entryway for a lot of people who are, you know, not fans of Power Rangers. So as usual, guys, you can find the link to Rashad's channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love, let him know I sent you, and I think I'm going to be on his channel very soon for Dead Presidents, if I'm not mistaken, will be what I'm going to be reviewing over on his channel. I was just in a review over on his channel for Juice starring Tupac, which I really, really enjoyed for the most part. So yeah, guys, definitely excited to continue doing this Tit for Tat series with Rashad. Go give him some love. But as far as Power Rangers goes, yeah, man, I think that this movie just does such a great job of being a character study about what it is to be a Power Ranger and kind of earning that right to be a Power Ranger. It is cheesy, but again, it's Power Rangers. You have to expect them to kind of dip their toes a little bit in the cheese. But for the most part, a lot of the performances on an overall are grounded. You know, the cheesier elements come in some of the CGI, the vibrance and the colors and some of the action and some of the over-the-top elements. But on an overall level, as far as the characters and the story goes, there's a lot of heart, there's a lot of charm, there's a very grounded, real-life lesson kind of message and story here. And that's something that I really, really enjoy about the adventure that these 5 characters have to go on in this film. Like I said, you have great actors in this film like Bryan Cranston, but then you also have great actors in this film, or actresses in this case, like Elizabeth Banks, who is an actress that I really, really enjoy, but I feel like she was the only one in this movie that kind of didn't know what movie she was in. When you're watching the movie, she's the most over-the-top character. Now, if you guys know the character she's playing from the original show, Rita Repulsa, she is this very over-the-top character that's screaming and, you know, just over-the-top.
My advice to you, Divatox, run!
Over the top, laughing, just really cheesy, got this big hair, her outfit's really extravagant. She is a very over the top, just very crazy character. And so when I heard Elizabeth Banks was gonna be playing her and I saw that they were completely changing the design of her and going from over the top crazy old lady to kind of, you know, good looking, very sexy looking Elizabeth Banks in her outfit, you know, with this kind of crazy vibe to her, I was kind of intrigued to see what they would do. But man, she just feels overly cheesy in this film. There are lines of dialogue and little things in this film that are cheesy from all the characters, but I think that the movie on an overall did a good job of being fairly grounded for what it is while also dipping its toes in that Power Rangers cheese, where I feel like she kind of just went head first into the cheese. She is cheesy the entire time. Her character is ridiculous, big, and over the top the entire time. She almost always feels like she is in a different movie than all the other people. So I guess if anything, she kind of is the one thing that kind of makes it feel like it retains that full Power Rangers cheese, but at the same time, sometimes it makes me feel like, yeah, they could have told her to tone it down just a little bit.
Mark! Do what I say, lady.
Lady. I like the sound of lady.
Get on the ground and you won't get hurt.
And something that I also think is really funny about this movie is one of the biggest plot points in this film and product placements I've ever seen in a movie revolves around Krispy Kreme. If you guys have seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I just think it's so funny how big of a thing it is in the movie. Such a big product placement, but it's such a big part of the plot as well. Who would have watched this movie and thought that Krispy Kreme would have been a huge part of Power Rangers 2017? So yeah, guys, that's gonna be my thoughts on this movie. I enjoy the CGI. It's over the top, it's cheesy, it's cartoony, and it leans into what Power Rangers is. There's a great reference near the end of the film to the original Power Rangers theme song, which gave me chills the first time I saw it in theaters, which is another thing. I saw this movie in theaters opening week on like a Tuesday after the opening weekend. When I was working at the theater, it was a really busy weekend for the movie, but as the week went on, it didn't do a lot in the theaters and a lot of the box office, and that was definitely a big bummer. This movie didn't do a big money in the box office. It is a huge reason we're not getting a sequel or not getting any of the 4 other films that they had planned. So that's a big bummer for me. I really enjoyed this film. There's even a post-credit scene teasing the Green Ranger, Tommy, which is one of the most iconic characters in the original series. So yeah, such a big bummer that they kind of, I hope they continue it. I hope they continue it, but it seems like they're kind of going to leave this one as a one-off and kind of move on. And they left it wide open for so much more. So that's such a big bummer. I was definitely excited to see where these characters would go with this iteration of Power Rangers. And again, they left it open. But I did really enjoy this movie for what it is. It's a movie I've watched countless times since. And I'm actually glad in a way that I had nobody in the theater the day I went to see it, because I saw it on a Tuesday at like 10 or 11 a.m. And I was at the very top of the theater, very back row, sitting there, very center with popcorn, and there was not a single other person in the theater. So I was able to just geek out and have a great time. And when that reference came at the very end to the original theme song, as well as a small cameo from Tommy and Kimberly from the original series, that was a great little moment. I wish they would have had a bigger cameo or maybe like a bigger role in the film, but it was nice to see them even included in the film. So yeah, guys, that's going to be my rambling review of Power Rangers 2017. Leave your comments down below. Let me know if you like this movie. Did you not like this movie? Do you think it's a better take on Power Rangers? Do you like this more darker, grittier, kind of edgy take on it? Or do you prefer the over-the-top, really cheesy version that the series has? Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. As usual, loved you guys for watching. I appreciate all of you. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Comment down below. Subscribe for more videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.